Hi, my name is Paula and I'm a new mom. Welcome to We've Probably Been There, a podcast by First Moms Club about how we really dealt and truly felt about everything motherhood. No BS, no judgment, and no advice, from us at least. Welcome to the club. This is the story of how we're tackling this generational change in parenting, trying to unlearn what comes natural to us and relearn what we know to be effective. So this is called the Introduction to Gentle Parenting. So this topic is a big one for me, not only for me, but for our generation as a whole, I think. But we're talking about an introduction to gentle parenting. So we're not going to talk about necessarily how we apply it in our homes or if we apply it in our homes. I just want to talk about the movement as a whole and how it makes us feel as mothers and relatively new mothers. So I don't have to tell you how big this movement has gotten. I don't know if we should even call it a movement. This philosophy has gotten. It's all over social media. Child psychologists are all over it. Anybody who is claimed to be a child professional is all over it. And I don't think that it was really ever explained properly. And what I mean by explained properly is defined. So I took 2 minutes to just look it up, because even me as a mother who's trying to apply it every day didn't know exactly what I was applying. And I found that there are 4 pillars to gentle parenting, which are mutual respect, empathy, understanding, and healthy boundaries. So today I'm joined by Alex, mom of 3, and Vanessa, mom of 2, to talk about gentle parenting and how it has affected you and your mindset towards parenting your kids. So I just want to start by saying when I first became a mom, it was like the hit of the pandemic, and the only access I had were my friends and social media and the internet. So gentle parenting, this huge philosophy on you should be doing this and you can't say this and you can't say no and you should offer another solution and you have to talk to your kids like they're adults and that's not how we were raised. This philosophy that is now, being shoved down my throat is not how I was raised. And the way that I know how to parent is the model from my mother, from my parents. So I'm finding it's giving me a lot of anxiety, and I'm finding it very stressful to have to kind of unlearn the way I was parented and relearn this new philosophy, which doesn't come naturally to me. I'm still a human being. Alex has a lot to say.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about your anxieties as well.
Well, this is how I feel.
Yep.
And, I'm a human being, and I know that I have to just tell myself I'm allowed to lose my shit and whatever, which I do.
100%.
But the guilt then of, that wasn't gentle parenting. Like, I think like that. Or, maybe I should have offered her a choice, or my daughter's having a tantrum. How should I be handling like this? What is the gentle parenting way to handle this? Like, all these mind fucks in my head are very stressful to me. Mm-hmm. So not to say that I think I'm doing a great job, quite frankly. I'm not a completely gentle parent. I do lose my shit 100%, but I'm trying to take in as much knowledge as I can. So I want to ask you, first of all, do you think that gentle parenting is a double-edged sword in the sense where you're getting all this knowledge, it's great, give me all the information, I do what I will? Or is it like, I'm going to get all this information and it's stressing me out and it's making me feel guilty because I'm not doing it the good way? So Alex, we'll start with you. Tell me how you feel about the whole philosophy in general.
I am not a person that can subscribe my whole body to a certain philosophy. Okay. I just can't. Okay. I am human. You are human.
Yeah.
And I am me. I come in with my experiences. I come in with my own anxieties, triggers, all of it. I think that gentle parenting is like this huge umbrella that encompasses so many different values. Mm. I think what the definition that you just read was so lovely.
That's the one I found on the internet.
Yeah. But it's lovely.
I mean, absolutely. Who wouldn't espouse to that, right?
Yes,
you sure, right? Sign me up.
Of course, sounds great. I think that in my mind, I try to be a proactive parent, which if I'm talking about it, it means reading. It means educating myself. It means all of the things that you do. Mm-hmm. I think that the idea of this like gentle parenting in theory is fantastic. But again, I'm not perfect.
Right.
So I do actually have a different perspective because I actually feel empowered by it.
Right. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
So that's the opposite of how I feel.
Yeah.
love that the way I was parented is not how I am parented.
Really?
Yes.
You don't find it hard?
I
Harder?
do not think I was parented in a way that was that contributed to the person I am in a positive way.
Okay.
I think that I have worked very hard
Mm-hmm.
to be the person that I am despite the parenting that I had.
Oh.
And I think that becoming a parent was an opportunity for me to break whatever cycle, whatever pattern. And I think I became the most me I've ever been as a parent.
I agree with that.
And so I think the idea that there is information, that there is this consideration of empathy in the way that we are being taught to parent is wonderful.
Yeah.
I think the absolute hardest part about being a parent and the absolute hardest part about gentle parenting is reparenting. And that's what you were talking about.
Right.
Which is I have to look
Rewire.
at rewire my brain because I was taught like if I whined, I was yelled at. If I did anything, I was yelled at.
Exactly.
Like all of these things. And so when I became a parent, it was like, okay, well, whining is bad.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, as I'm educating myself, it's kind of like, why is whining bad?
Right.
I mean, whining is a kid showing you they're in distress.
Yep.
Something is not right. They are struggling. They don't have the language, the skill set, the emotional regulation skills to handle it. And yet I'm getting mad at them.
Right.
You know, and like that really was like, that changed everything.
Yeah.
When I actually looked at whining, it changed my brain.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, like this is a new way. And it empowered me. It made me feel like shit. Like this is a cool, interesting job I have now.
And I agree with that. But just on your point, you like, for example, whining and triggering because I wasn't allowed to do it as a child is very triggering for me.
Yeah.
Totally.
And yelling, loud noises, I wasn't allowed to not whisper.
Correct.
So triggering for me once again. So when my children are doing those things, it's like I have to stop myself. You know the emotional growth you have to do on the spot?
Yes.
It's like, okay, yelling is happening. Sit back. What are you going to do next? You have two choices. Either you let it, succumb you and you yell at them back.
Yeah.
Or you think about, well, this is what I think about. What would gentle parents? Okay, well, except everything that you said, they're clearly in distress. So more often than not, I sit down with them and I try to take that route. But sometimes it's like you yell at me. They're whining after like first time gentle parent, second time. After the 10th time, I'm gonna lose my shit.
It's also
100%.
important though for children to see normal emotion in parents,
Yes.
right? Like that's also. I don't think that gentle parenting negates that. That like I'm going back to this again, but I don't think it's expected that parents become robots.
100% of the time, you can't gentle parent.
If you think that that's what's expected of gentle parenting,
then I
think
think
that's a
think.
misread.
Then that's not.
That's
It's
what
a
I think.
misuse of the
Yeah,
language.
That's what I think.
Because a gentle parent, I hate even saying that because it's not one person versus another. The concept is not that you can't yell or not that you don't explode your person.
Yeah.
But that you go back after and say,
I'm
"Mommy
sorry. I do that."
shouldn't have
Yeah.
lost it.
Yeah.
I am an adult. I have big adult feelings.
Yeah.
You are a little person. You have little person
Yeah.
feelings and you are not responsible for my feelings and I'm sorry.
Yes.
Like, okay, I can only talk from my experience. My parents have never apologized to me.
To a child?
To me as an adult, they don't apologize to me. Like, can you imagine who I would have been? I don't know.
No, I agree.
I might have been the president.
I think for me, gentle parenting presents itself kind of as a double-edged sword. I was a deeply insecure parent with my first daughter, Emma, in particular, I would say. I felt really ill-equipped to deal with a child and the emotions that came with a young child, a toddler. The outbursts of emotions in particular were really triggering and really difficult for me to deal with. And I never had that parental intuition that kicked in. And that's like faulty wiring, maybe. I don't know what it is, but I never had that intuition of how to deal with it. So gentle parenting, I would use books as a crutch, right? Like, if I can't figure it out on my own, there must be some books, some
Guidebook.
philosophy,
Yeah.
some guidebook
Yeah.
that I could use. And reading and trying to educate myself did provide me with some self confidence
Okay.
about parenting. And it also showed me that whatever little intuition sometimes I had wasn't always good.
Yeah.
Like, and so I've found that, like, the books, the podcasts, the social media gurus, at times it has been really helpful for me,
Yeah, I agree.
because um it's it's provided me with that, with a philosophy that I can espouse,
Mhm.
that I can then try to implement
Yeah.
in our household. The flip side of that is that when you realize that you're running off course
Mhm.
from scripts, the philosophy, and so on, you can become very quickly, as you said, guilt ridden.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
And that's yeah.
I've felt I've felt that a lot. I felt so much guilt. Again, I hope, like, this doesn't become a crying episode again.
It's
but
okay.
but I came into the philosophy of gentle parenting. Let's call it that,
Yeah.
just for purposes of catch-all. But quite quite late. I think when Emma, my eldest, was maybe 2.5, 3. Uh, and before then, I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But then I realized we were just escalating one another all the times in my responses. So I knew I wasn't doing something was wrong in the way that I was parenting, and I wasn't feeling the bond with my daughter that I thought I would feel. But of course, she wasn't feeling that with me because of my responses to her. And the the books really helped me for that. Like, it really helped me to connect with her and to change my behavior, w- when she was having highs, when she was having lows. And we've become so much more connected in the way that I had always envisaged we would be connected,
Mhm.
through my learning about this.
Mhm.
Um, what I feel a lot of sadness about is the way that I was before I knew. Like, what, like, you think, like, did I damage my child? Like, did I, like,
Yeah.
break my child before?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're too late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But then, like, you're never too late.
Right.
Like, you can always repair.
Never too
You
late.
like, if you do, or maybe that's just something you tell yourself to make
No,
yourself feel
no,
better.
I
But, like, there is you can do better. And um and I have tried ever since, and going forward, to do better than I was doing. And you know parenting is not only about the growth of your child, it's about your own growth also through
Yep.
that process.
100%.
And for me, just gentle parenting has provided me with an opportunity for that growth. But with that comes some of the guilt. But you have to learn to live comfortably with that guilt, and
Mhm.
try to say, maybe there's a part of me that's always going to feel this way, but I could use this feeling to fuel myself to do better in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from with that.
I agree on everything you say. I just have a tough time. And again, maybe it's not, obviously, I can step back or whatever, but I just have a tough time with the social media part of it. Like, I just have a tough time where everyone and their mother is qualified to give advice and tell mothers on how
Is
to
it like feelings
parent.
of
And
inadequacy
you
that you
need to
feel?
curate your feed,
No, no,
man.
I know. No, I know. I know that. But I'm
'Cause-
just saying we're living in a world where,
People are empowered to offer advice from their own personal experience versus from an educated, evidence-based
right. Well, you see, like what we're trying to do here is experience based, and that's really
Yes.
important to me, because I am just having a hard time swallowing people on social media telling me, you can't say no. How many times have I heard, your toddler hears no all day long. You shouldn't be saying no to your kid.
I've never heard that one.
Oh,
And I
I've heard
follow a
that.
lot of social
And I just, it's like, and you know how many times I say no to my kid? A lot. And it makes me feel bad. It makes
Inadequate.
me feel
It makes
bad
you feel
because
like-
it's like people are telling me, but who are these people? But then I listen to more reputable podcasts or, read more reputable books on specialist professionals on child psychology who are a little more gentle, for lack of a better word, and telling you, it's okay, exactly what you're saying. Like, you're human. Like, I also am a mother of 4 and I lose my shit. But it's just, I'm having a hard time. And yes, my feed has switched since, but I'm just having a hard time. And that's what really got to me, especially during COVID when I was with my newborn. That's all I was hearing. It was just banging down information on what not to do. So it's like, am I doing anything right? Is this normal?
Yeah.
Like, help, who's going to help me?
I think the difference from our generation to our parents' generation is we at times feel really insecure about parenting, and I don't think that they ever
No.
questioned
Yeah, they
or
didn't
felt
even think about
any
it.
sense of insecurity in their parenting. They
Nothing.
just
And
went
FYI,
on.
it's still the way to pay. Their way is still the better way in their mind. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like less my dad, who was a bit more of an old school,
Authoritarian.
Traditional.
yeah, but in a very
Authoritarian.
still kind of like gentle way.
Yeah.
Authoritative. Sorry.
Authoritative.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. My mother, if I think back now to the way that I was parented, she would have definitely been using some of that, like respectful parenting, and acknowledging of feelings. And I always felt really heard and understood by my mother. I don't think she was doing it. I don't think she read a single parenting book or anything of that nature.
That's amazing.
But she, I think intuitively, that felt sort of a very natural way for her to parent.
Yes.
She seemed to have had that
Exactly.
intuition,
Natural.
and we had this incredible bond for it, I think. And I had always wanted to have that with my daughter, right?
Yeah.
So when I had her, and there was a lot of conflict in the first years of the toddler years, I couldn't understand, like, what was I doing wrong? Like,
Right.
I'm not bonding. I'm not feeling this connection and this feeling of connectedness that I think I should be feeling.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. I think when you've been parented,
No.
or in a very top-down manner, then
Yes.
you know to counterbalance that, and you know what not to do. But if you equally have been the product of some gentle parenting, then I don't know that you necessarily know to reproduce this. Like, it's
That's interesting because
I don't know. It's just a thought that I have, because I was the product of
a
what
gentle parent.
like phenomenal parents, I would say. But
That's very special.
But I am a weird parent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you had gentle parents, you will know how to parent gently.
That's right.
Okay.
Whereas if you had top-down parents, then
Yeah.
you know what you don't want to reproduce.
Interesting.
I think
That's a
maybe.
good point.
Sounds right. Sounds clear. But I think, listen, we are sitting here having these open conversations about parenting, about our experiences, whatever. Like, we have to acknowledge the fact we are certain types of people that are looking at parenting in a certain type of way.
Mhm.
I think many people of our generation are still not considering parenting, are still not looking at their experience, are still like holding things in. And I'm going to say my kid is a little bit older, definitely than yours, Paula. And it gets hard. It gets hard to be with other parents, to have friends. Like, I've had friends who parent very differently from me, and sometimes it works. And sometimes I have friends that parent very differently from me, and it's really hard to be with them and their kids and us and my kids, and because we have just such a different perspective. And I think that comes up with family dynamics when you have cousins and aunts and uncles and whatever.
Yes.
And there's kids and there's different types of parenting. And I think in that sense, your style, I'm going to call it a style, because like a philosophy feels very black and white. Like you're either part of the philosophy or you're
style
out.
is good, I
A
think.
style is a little more,
Avant-garde.
gray. Your style of parenting, I am on the gentler side, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
I'm certainly very strong with my boundaries,
Yeah.
but I'm not setting those boundaries from a place of scaring my kids.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like that's a clear method. Like, I just think it starts to become uncomfortable. It starts to become, it can become uncomfortable when your style and the people around you style is different.
Yes.
And I think it also shows in the kids. You have a kid
Yeah.
over for a play date. I mean, your kids are having play dates, right? Like,
Mhm.
and you can tell immediately if they're coming from a home whose boundaries are not as strong, right? Like, you can just tell. And I think it's interesting to look at it, if we look at gentle parenting as like this overall umbrella of like, what does it look like within a very diversely parenting? Because, right, we're not all
Yeah.
parenting the same.
No.
I think when we were growing up, for the most part,
Mhm.
people were parenting similarly.
Yes.
They were parenting the way their
Yes.
parents were
Yes,
parenting.
exactly.
So everyone, for the most part, was in the 90s was
Yeah.
dealing with the same stuff. But now some people are subscribing to this philosophy. Some people are doing attachment parenting.
Yeah.
Like, it's just very different.
Yeah. There's
Do you
options.
think that it invites that the feeling the need to adopt a style of parenting is inviting more less of a feeling of community amongst parents, whereas like because it brings judgment into other forms of parenting, and therefore other parents are judging one another, because now you almost feel the need to identify
Yeah.
with a style.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is our
Yeah.
style, and you need to name
Yeah.
it and tag it and
Yeah.
say like, our family,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing.
Yes.
We
You
don't
guys
use
are doing
bathroom words
this.
in our family,
Yeah,
and then the
and
other
so-
kid comes
Wait
and goes,
until they're
"Maybe
seven."
Doesn't that remove that or bring judgment into a parenthood?
So,
And
yes, I'm going to
like-
say something that's going to be very wildly unpopular.
Okay,
Yes, you go.
No. I just want to say a truth really quickly right
Yes.
before. So just to say what she said. So I remember calling you, and
Yes.
don't get offended, okay? But I remember calling you
Yes.
to ask you to
Yes.
be on my podcast. Remember?
What did I say?
No. So you didn't say anything, but I chose you for a specific reason. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm so happy you're here. La la la. Anyway, so I called you and we had a conversation, and I remember because we were catching up, and you were telling me, I was explaining to you about the podcast and about how it was
Yeah.
about motherhood and all that, and then we got into our parenting styles a little bit,
Yes.
just a little bit. And you had told me I set really firm boundaries with my kids. I've
Yeah.
already told them Santa Claus doesn't exist, the tooth fairy doesn't exist, this and that, like
Yes.
this. And I hung up the phone with you, and again, this has nothing to do with you as a person, but I remember hanging up the phone and going to Matt and being like, should we tell Maya that Santa doesn't exist? Or like, am I doing this wrong? Because for me, you are like, you've been a parent for 10 years. You
Yeah.
know, you have your shit together. You're very eloquent. I admire you for like, certainly because you're here. And I just started doubting myself. I started doubting myself because
Right.
I was like, for me, I put Alex, up here in the parenting. And same I did with you when I first had Maya. And I just
for
kept
reasons that are like baffling to
I
me.
know,
I know,
it's
but
such a mess.
I was questioning myself. Maybe I'm just the most insecure parent on the planet.
You are not.
But I was questioning myself. I was like, am I doing this right? Or like, should I be telling my kids that the tooth fairy doesn't? And Matt's like, okay, Paula, like, just no, we're not telling her Santa doesn't
Also-
exist. Like, but
Matt
do you
knows
see
me very well.
how
Yes.
gentle parenting as a whole, the whole
I don't
world
think-
is shoving shit down my throat.
I understand.
And then making you feel
and
inadequate.
making and questioning my parenting skills, ability,
Yes.
style, whatever you
Yes.
want to call it.
Yes.
or it's derouting you from any kind of intuition that you have.
Or
You have my
yes.
Or
intuition.
exactly,
Yes.
it's questioning my
Yes.
intuition, and it's questioning my confidence as a parent.
Yes.
So
Okay.
it's like there's too much. There's too much
Yeah,
noise.
that certainly crisis of confidence
First
is a
of
big
all,
one.
I am a particular person who
I know,
makes
but
very bizarre decisions sometimes.
it's not bizarre. You have a basis.
You
for
I
it.
have a reason,
You
but
have
it's
a
for
reason.
me, and it's based on my experiences and the way that I was parented and the way, like, all the things that I went through. You were parented in a different way and had a different upbringing. You had a very different upbringing than me.
Yeah.
You had some magical moments and some very hard moments. I had some I had mostly hard moments, and you had some wonderful magical moments.
Yeah.
And yes, my kids do not think that. First of all, I'm Jewish, so
Okay.
let's
fine.
just put that out there. And my kids, you know, in the conversation of, is Elsa real? I made a clear distinction that some things are stories and some
Yes,
things are
that was a
real.
conversation
And
we had.
Elsa is a story,
Yeah.
and Santa Claus is a story,
Yeah.
and the Tooth Fairy is a story. And these stories make us feel wonderful, and they're really fun. And it is not your responsibility to go tell your friends that Santa Claus isn't real. That is very clear.
Yeah.
But like that worked for me.
Okay.
And I think what I was going to say that was, I think is going to be unpopular is that parenting books for me, they don't work. And I'll tell you just from my, by the way, I love to read and I love books, and that is not, it's not to do with that. In order for a parenting book to make it to a publisher and to be like out there, they have to have a certain perspective. Like they have to have a philosophy.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't make sense. There's a hypothesis. There's like a parenting book has a philosophy, a thought process. And that might work for you in the moment, and that might not work for you in another moment.
Yes.
And so for me to keep my like mental health and like to be able to like keep going through parenthood, like having a book that I hold true, like it just doesn't work because I need to be able to roll with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I roll with it in the right a direction that makes me feel good. And sometimes I get into bed at night and I'm like, I wasn't great today. Today was not a great day. But then I wake up in the morning and I'll walk into my kid's room and say, like, yesterday was really tough.
Yeah.
Mommy had a really hard time. So I am not performing 100% most of the time.
But the books work if you're not using them as gospel, as like, you know, Jesus to do this.
Yes.
They give you
not everyone is
They give
good
you
at that.
guideposts.
Exactly.
And they, if you use them, I'm thinking of one particular. It shall remain unnamed for the purposes of this podcast.
Yes, don't name books.
But one is particularly good, I think, at just making you understand concepts as a whole. And if they're too scripted, then yes, it becomes difficult because you get these cookie cutter, like you want to get into these cookie cutter answers that are like fully canned, and it sounds canned, and that's not how you speak.
Yeah,
and your child knows it, and your child is like, huh? Like that's not right.
I think it depends on your brain, how like books work, and you can like decipher and you can like strain it and find the good bits of it. Like I don't want to feel, because I am a person that can be black and white.
But just to come back on what you were saying, for people like me, especially for new moms, like think about people who just like I vividly remember being at my house and have given birth to Maya, or maybe even 6 months later. For a new mom, everything is gospel because you don't know what you're doing.
You're grasping at whatever little buoy.
Social media was gospel, books were gospel. So that's like new moms, or at least me as a new mom, didn't have the mental capacity to step back and say, you know what? Maybe I'll lose my shit.
I think that the philosophy, or the philosophy at the end of the day, should be, yes, educate yourself, but be damn gentle with yourself. Because,
oh my God.
Because that is like, goes back to feelings of guilt, of crisis of confidence. These are all things I've felt so strongly of, you know, not feeling whatever intuition you imagine you would feel. And just remember that, to be gentle with yourself. And I think in anything that you're reading, in anything that you're using as guideposts, as guidance, just try to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Because
and nobody told me that. And that's why I think that this story or this topic is so important, because everyone was telling me the opposite. So nobody told me to, and not like, you got this, mama. Like, no, you don't know if I got this. You don't know me. You know, it's more of like, and not even people who say like, I'm human, I lose my shit too. Like, yeah, that's great. But as a mother, I was trying to be so perfect all the time because I wanted my child to be the best and never feel pain and never feel discomfort. Like I would have taken all those feelings for her, you know?
Yeah.
So I wanted to be the best all the time. So nobody told me.
This is going back to reparenting, my friend, because we grew up in thinking that perfection was attainable, and we were striving to be perfect at things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we are learning. I think parenthood is a really big learning curve. You cannot be perfect at this.
No.
It is impossible to be perfect at this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
I'd venture a guess, though, that you're a very different parent than you were parented.
I am. You know what? I have to say, my daughter, Maya's now 3 and Maddie's now like 14 almost 15 months. Like I'm very proud of the parent that I've become. Like I'm very proud.
100%.
Although the social media gave me so much anxiety, it still does a little bit. But I am more gentle with myself, and I can say, you know what? Yes, I do lose my patience. I do lose my shit, but I always try to repair, and it works. And you know that's because of the knowledge that I was given. Agreed. But it took time. It took 2 years. It took a lot of time to for my own personal growth as a parent. And that brings me back to my last point, was that you're raising these humans, you're forming these emotional beings and trying to manage them and help them manage their emotions, but you're also growing as a parent at the very same time.
Yeah.
It's in parallel. So it's like this double
I think
Parenting,
emotional
your
firework, you know.
Wait,
you know what I
hold
mean?
on. Now add on your partner and
Oh,
having
yes.
to parent them.
But we are going to get into that, my friend.
So,
Not right now, but we will. But yes, no. And you're parenting the whole house
yes.
emotionally.
You're parenting the whole house.
You're parenting the whole house. And
Yes.
it's the mental load
Oh,
is,
see.
that's another podcast as well. The mental load, the hidden mental load.
You can include me on that one.
100%. It's a lot. Anyway, so my point was, you know, sometimes it's helpful, the knowledge is helpful, you know, whatever, but sometimes it really wasn't helpful.
And I think what part of the difference is we view child rearing and parenting as a high stakes proposition. Like the stakes
What
are
does
so
that mean?
high. Like parenting that
Yeah.
this.
Oh, yeah. It's like, if you fuck
you're
up-
responsible for a
yeah.
child,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're like. Again, that was different from our parents. I don't think parents were just like, we will get married and then we will have a child and we'll do our damn best.
Yeah.
But whatever happens,
Yeah,
happens.
Yeah.
Like we always feel like every decision
Has a
or
consequence.
like I certainly have felt like a poor reaction to something may just ruin the child.
Yeah.
Like
They're gonna be
That's really
confident.
hard.
Yeah.
That is very
Like-
hard to feel that way day in and day out.
Yeah.
Like,
That is a lot of pressure on you.
So
and I think I have one child. My eldest is like I think that's what maybe you call them, like deep
feeling kids.
Deep feeling.
I have
So
one.
with a lot of explosive
one.
emotions, one way or another. Like
100%.
and so she's very reactive to
Yeah.
different. She will really absorb that. And my other is like everything bounces right off her, but the other absorbs everything. So you can really perceive how my reactions to her are. You feel a sense of impact right away.
mhm,
Like so. In that sense, it's very gratifying to parent her because you feel very quickly
Yeah.
like
The
When
fruits
when
of
it
your
works.
labor.
when it works,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and one thing, this may be for another podcast, but I think gentle parenting, also being so different from the way that most of us were parented, has its load of challenges when you're thinking about how our families and our parents are reacting to the way that we're parenting.
don't even.
Ooh,
Like
that is another
a
podcast.
judgment,
That's another
judgment about how
Write that down.
we are doing the things that
Oh,
we're
yeah.
doing,
Oh,
and
yeah. Why are you giving her a choice?
yeah, or like things like that, and it makes it.
Helps
She's
me.
a human being.
Yeah.
She's not a dog.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, yes, yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into that. That's a huge, huge one. But
I just want to see if I've covered all my.
I think
topics.
also to say, and Maddie's still quite young,
Maddie's
so
very young. She's a little monster.
the way that you parent one kid is not going to be the way
No,
that you parent another
That's
one.
true.
And that was a very big learning. So like my style with my eldest, and then my style with my middle, and now my style with my youngest, like let alone parenting the whole house. Now I'm parenting in 3 different ways.
Oh.
An age group.
And age groups and stages. And I would say, like, listen, when Maddie, you're going to find, I suspect, because you've mastered some of the skills.
Yeah.
You don't realize you've mastered
No,
it.
no, I
But then
realize.
when you put it
Yeah.
into action,
Yeah,
like when
I
she's
realize.
2 or 2.5, and
Mhm.
the things that you were struggling with Maya, like,
Yeah.
you're going to be like, okay, like a
This
tantrum.
works. Yeah, yeah.
A tantrum from a 2-year-old, man, does that not faze me?
Yeah.
Like, I got that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
a
It on.
2-year-old tantrum on.
Yeah.
I've got it.
Yeah.
7, 8-year-old,
Yeah.
like, that challenges me
Yeah.
because that's new.
First.
And,
Yes.
and,
That's
and
such a good point.
to
that
bring, like, like if we go back to like gentle parenting, like to bring like those gentle skill set tools to 8 years old is so much harder for me than like a 2-year-old because I've done it twice
Yeah,
and like
of course.
I'm not scared of my little one
Yeah.
having a big feeling.
Yeah. 'Cause
But
you
a
know how
big
to handle
feel
it.
I know how to handle it.
Yeah.
So I think your confidence grows as you
Yeah.
go through
Yeah,
kids.
absolutely. That makes sense.
And I think you also are able to distinguish like what is standard,
Mm.
what is not.
Yeah.
And I just to go back, I'm all over the place, sorry.
No,
To
no.
go back to my point about books, I am a big believer of specialists.
Good.
I got a specialist for everything.
So do I.
So, like, I think because a specialist is a human being,
Yeah.
the gray comes in
Mhm.
versus a book which is published at a certain date and a certain time. And, like, I think there's just more room for personalization
Yeah.
of your style
Yeah.
than a book which is kind of like, this is a little more
Yeah.
cookie cutter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
100%.
That's good.
I got.
All right, cool. Well, thanks guys so much for sharing your point of views on gentle parenting.
Thank you.
You've been listening to We've Probably Been There, a podcast by First Moms Club. Follow First Moms Club on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Watch us on YouTube and Spotify, and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Join us next week for more stories about this roller coaster we call motherhood. Thank you for listening.